So March 12th, this year, 2019, authorities what am I trying to say? They exposed, I haven't preached for 3 weeks. There you go, right out of the bat. So they exposed a criminal conspiracy. This is crazy stuff. We all saw the story. To influence undergrad admissions committees at really top universities in the country. It's called Operation Varsity Blues, is what authorities called it, and it involved at least 50 people, including a lot of well-known families. And they paid this guy named William Singer lots of money, over $25 million from 2011 to 2018, to inflate entrance exam scores and to bribe college committees. And in fact, he unethically arranges entrance for 750 families in that time period. We're talking big name schools, everybody. Berkeley, Yale, Stanford, Northwestern, and big name business leaders and actors, people that already have a leg up on society. And get this, $200,000 one family paid to inflate their kids' SAT scores. Now you might send your kid to like an SAT course for I don't even know how much that costs. Let's say $500 or something like that. Can you imagine paying $200,000 to get your kid's SAT score up, to get a little better? So that's what happens. So we're talking years of prison time, fines, all kinds of things, shakes the system to its core. Really crazy story that happened earlier this year. So I want to ask this morning, how do we react when we have hopes and we have dreams and we have things that we want to see happen out there in the world and they bump against reality? There's something in reality that just tells us you can't quite get there to where it is that you want to be. Something stands in the way. In this case, it looks like it's something like intellectual ability that stands in the way. Or it's competition from other people, or just the subjective kind of fickle decisions that admissions boards might make. Whatever it is, test scores, they stood in the way of parents who had dreams and plans for the kids, and these people respond in a way that brings out the very worst in human nature. They respond with dishonesty and lies and manipulation, distortion of the truth, bribery, whatever it is, disrespect of the system, disregard of other people who are in line. It's amazing what we'll do when nobody's looking. How many at the grocery store, you just hop in line in front of a bunch of people? You know? Now you will do this. We just came back from vacation. Lots of people will do this. When you know a lane is merging, you'll try to skirt around the outside and get in front of everybody. I know we will do things like that, but it's amazing what we'll do when nobody's looking and the way we'll manipulate and we'll distort the truth. So that's one thing. That's one level to think about. Let's take it to another level. How do we react when we believe that God has been in the details of something? He's really been orchestrating events, and we can see a narrative that's building because God has been part of it. Anybody ever felt that way? And then you bump into reality. And then you bump into something that just changes that narrative, or it seems to bring it to a halt. There's a wrench unexpectedly thrown to our plans. How do you react when that happens? When you're a student and you don't have the scores that you need to get into the school where you want to be, or the door closes on that dream job, and I'll tell you what, it seemed like all the momentum was heading in one direction. You had it. And then something happens. The door closes. Or a kid decides something different than what you would have expected. Any parents ever had that happen? Seems to be a narrative building for your child. And then they decide something altogether different. Something that doesn't fit with the plans. It felt like God was at work, everybody, and now this. And now this. Does that resonate with anybody here? Well, that's a space I want to tell you where character comes through loud and clear. You can't fake character. You might be able to fake character on a Sunday morning. I'm not calling anybody out. But you might be able to fake it on a Sunday morning. But character is the kind of thing, you can't fake it consistently, and you can't fake it when something like this happens, something that's really trying. And we're going to look at Ruth chapter 4. We're finishing up this series today, where Boaz is going to run into reality. Something's going to happen. Something comes up. And it seems like God's been spinning this narrative, and he has. But then this thing happens, and we want to see, how does Boaz handle it? What's he do? Does he pay Bill Singer $250,000 to kind of get rid of this problem? Does he lie? Does he manipulate? What's he do when he runs into this situation? That's where we're going to be. That's where we're going to live this morning. We're wrapping up this series. We've seen the handiwork, the goodness, the hand of God in the lives of ordinary people, in the details. And we've said over and over, we ought to look at the Bible not just as these extraordinary, unusual people, but regular people that could have been you. That could have been the story of your life. Right? These stories are famous because God has made them famous. But these are ordinary people in an ordinary part of the world who just experience the same kind of heartache and heartbreak that we all do. And so we come to the last chapter and we see God has been at work in the lives of Ruth and the lives of Naomi. Do you see that? They experience tragedy. They experience heartache. So God's going to tell a story of what? Despair? Spiraling down? He's going to tell a story of redemption, isn't he? He's going to tell a story of redemption. And we see his love and providence. It's working through the mundane. And we pick it up where Boaz is ready to redeem the land. Remember, he's this thing called a kinsman redeemer. It's family who would have taken over the family land and married the widow to keep the land in the family and to make sure that the family was provided for. He's the kinsman redeemer. He's ready to redeem the land and redeem Ruth by marrying her. He's treated her well. He's treated her with dignity. He's provided for her. He's been generous. It seems like a fairy tale. But it turns out there's actually another kinsman redeemer. There's a competitor. And that person stands closer in line than Boaz. So actually this guy, he's got first dibs. He can have the land. He can marry Ruth if that's what he wants. And that's Boaz, we've got this fairy tale story, running into reality. And it's an unexpected twist. And by the way, there's this question. We're gonna do an apologetic series, next series. We're gonna call it the Why series. And we're gonna talk about these big questions about God and his universe. And we're gonna ask why. But part of the reason we know we can trust the Bible is because these stories take these bizarre turns that only happen in real life. You can't make this stuff up. Only happens in real life. Everything's got a trajectory. We're seeing God at work working in the details. And then suddenly, there's another kinsman redeemer who can have the land and who can marry Ruth. So we're going to pick it up. And we want to pay attention to how does Boaz deal with this reality? How does he deal with it? How does he cope with it? So there had to be witnesses to a transaction like this. That's where we're going to pick it up. And we're going to see this interaction between Boaz and the kinsman redeemer. So chapter 2 says, Boaz took 10 of the elders of the town and he said, "Sit here." And they did so. Then he said to the kinsman redeemer, "Naomi, who's come back from Moab, is selling the piece of land that belonged to our relative, Elimelech. I thought I should bring the matter to your attention and suggest that you buy it in the presence of these seated here and in the presence of the elders of my people." Now, that's quite a thing. So Boaz has initiated this entire process. Not only has he initiated this, he wants to be with Ruth. Remember, I suggest that you buy it. Okay, so we talk about surrender here, and we talk about it in terms of this is us. We're clutching at the world. Surrender, we're clutching at the world. We're trying to control it on our own. Surrender is going like this, living palms up. Now, Boaz is doing that big time. He seeks out the kinsman's redeemer. He says, I suggest you buy it. All right, if you will redeem it, do so. But if you will not tell me, so I'll know. For no one has the right to do it except for you, but I am next in line. I will redeem it, he said. It's one of those moments your heart just falls into your feet. Right? Okay, I'll take it. I'll take the land. Then Boaz says, on the day you buy the land from Naomi, you also acquire Ruth, the Moabite, the dead man's widow, to maintain the name of the dead with his property. At this, the kinsman redeemer said, I'll pass. Right? then I cannot redeem it because I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it yourself, I cannot do it. There's some kind of it's not exactly clear what's going on here. There's some kind of a lineage issue where marrying Ruth would actually put the family line and the inheritance in danger. But it's more likely he just doesn't like this idea. He doesn't want to marry Ruth the Moabite. So now in earlier times in Israel, for the redemption and transfer of property to become final, one party took off his sandal and gave it to the other. That was the method of legalizing transactions in Israel. So you and I are having a business deal. We've reached terms, we've bartered, and then we take off our shoes and we hand it to one another. All right, that's what's going on. So the kinsman redeemer said to Boaz, "Buy it yourself." And he removed his sandal. Then Boaz announced to the elders and all the people, "Today you're witnesses that I bought Naomi and all the property of Elimelech, Chilion, and Mahlon." Those are the brothers. "I have also acquired Ruth the Moabite, Mahlon's widow, as my wife, to maintain the name of the dead with his property, so that his name will not disappear from among his family or from his hometown." Can I give you a footnote? This isn't in my notes at all. Can I give you a footnote? Here's what's amazing. You see that Ruth is actually being treated as what? She's being treated as property in the ancient world. And it's one of these difficult topics we deal with when we look at the Bible. Boaz is calling her that as well in legal terms. But what's really interesting about this story and what's interesting about the Bible is Ruth is treated not merely as property, as a woman. She's treated with full dignity. So we see something different is happening in the kingdom of God. All people are being treated with equality and being treated with dignity. In fact, if you look forward, and we're going to at the end of this, if you look at the lineage that Matthew gives, from which Christ comes, Ruth's name is actually mentioned. So really interesting where God is moving things and how he's redeeming things. So it's a dramatic moment. Even though it happens really quickly, for Boaz, it's not just about inheriting the land. In fact, it has little to do with that for Boaz. He wants to be with Ruth. He's seen her character, and he wants to be with her. He wants to make a life with her. Now, that kind of desire is the kind of thing, it can bring out the best in us, but it can also bring out the worst in us, right? It can bring out manipulation. It can bring out jealousy, destructive behavior, anger, harming other people. Lots of emotions. So for Boaz, it's not just business. It's not just business. Yeah, let me point you again. Boaz seeks out the kinsman redeemer. He seeks him out. He initiates. He goes to find him. He puts the outcomes of his own deeply held desires in jeopardy. Do you see that? He puts the outcome of his own deeply held desires in jeopardy. So how does he do it? There were probably some legal requirements. He's probably bound to do this. Who knows whether he could have gotten away with it or not. But it goes deeper than merely fulfilling the law. It goes deeper than that. So one of the themes in the story of Ruth and Boaz is integrity. Did you notice these are people that have integrity? They have family loyalty. They're patient. They're self-controlled. They're long-suffering. They're honest. They're faithful. All of these things, they demonstrate integrity. Now, what's integrity? That's a word that gets thrown around. When I was growing up, there was who remembers Promise Keepers? Remembers Promise Keepers? Men of integrity. Men of integrity. What is that? To have integrity means that all the parts of you, all the parts of who you are, you've got a mind, you think thoughts. You're thinking thoughts right now. You've got emotions. You're having emotions right now. You have a will. You can choose to do things and to act. Or we've all been given a body. All right, that's how we relate to the world. When we have integrity, stay with me on this, this is important. When we have integrity, all these parts of who we are working together and they're functioning as God created them to function. So it's really simple. Actually, the easiest way to see what integrity looks like is to see what disintegrity or disintegration looks like. When you're disintegrated, the opposite of integrity, you know certain things are true. You think thoughts. I should do this. I should not do this. But when you're disintegrated, you lack integrity, your will doesn't follow through, and your body doesn't follow through. You give in to temptation. Has anybody ever experienced that? That's disintegration. Integrity is when all these things, we do the things that up here we know we should do. And in fact, the more we become like Christ, the more our emotions follow. And we actually take joy in doing the good thing, in doing right. We take joy in sacrificing. So we have integrity. And our whole life, our body, everything shows it. When you're happy and you know it, right? Yeah, you clap your hands. When you're happy and you know it, then what? Your face will surely show it. It's actually, that's a song, that's a kid's song about integrity, right? Thank you for the clap. That was fantastic. It felt so engaged, and it woke some of your neighbors up, so I appreciate that. So when the unexpected happens, what about Boaz? Well, he's been shaped by the presence of God, by the presence of Yahweh. So he keeps his integrity. He's integrated. All the parts of who we are, they're integrated. They're working together the way God intended. And he speaks the truth plainly. And he's got the self-control that he needs to accept the outcome. I suggest you buy the land. He's got the self-control to put his own agenda just out there for God to control. So when the unexpected disrupts a really great narrative in your life, you're just sure God's in this, God's working. When the unexpected disrupts that, can you keep your integrity? Can you keep your integrity? Do you see that? That's a tremendously important question for all of us. Can we keep our integrity? Integrity, who we are deep down, it's going to affect everything else about us, especially in a crisis situation. Everything about us and the people around us. Did you know your character is not just impacting you, it impacts the entire world around you, more than anything else about you. More than your skill set, more than your charm, more than your wonderful good looks. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Whoever's, yeah, I'm talking to you. It affects everything around us. I think I've told this story before, but it bears repeating. I was an undergrad, and you'd make copies in the computer room. People went to the computer lab. Do people do that anymore? People go to the computer lab, like young people? Do you go to the computer lab and like print stuff? So it was 10 cents a copy, and it was on the honor system. Okay, so you had to carry a buck in there, a bunch of dimes or whatever. And there was a little sign on the whatever it is, the canister that you'd put the money in. It said, don't sell your integrity for 10 cents. And they wanted you to pay for the copies, obviously, but it stuck with me because integrity and character, these are not things that we just will ourselves to do or we really wish we had in a moment of crisis or temptation. That's the way we come to think about it. I am tempted to this is a 25-page paper. That's like $12, something like that, right? It's supposed to be funny. It's $2.50. It's not $12. Man, everybody just believes what I say. I need to take a second. So I'm tempted to I don't want to put the money in there. So you think in a moment like that, what this is about is really trying to will myself to do the right thing. That's the way we think about integrity. Here's the way the Bible talks about integrity and tells us about integrity. Integrity is something that is formed by walking with Christ over time. So that when you are in a moment of temptation, you can call on him and naturally do the right thing and actually want to do the right thing. And this may sound crazy to you. The more we walk with Christ and the more we become like him, the more we naturally can do the things we want to do. It's a very joyful life because you want to do the good things. You want to do things that are right. So can we keep our integrity in the face of the unexpected? And can we even recognize the unexpected as an opportunity to grow? So can we say, Lord, build my patience? How many people need more patience? Lord, build my patience when my child or my parent or my boss or my friend, my loved one, whoever it is, makes a decision that I just didn't see coming. I thought this was heading a certain way in their lives, and I thought I had so much control over the situation, and I just didn't see this coming. Can we say, Lord, help me to build patience. Keep my mind, body, and soul integrated and moving in the direction of your eternal kingdom. Lord, give me self-control. Help me to maintain and live in self-control when circumstances don't cooperate. Or give me contentment. Give me contentment when the unexpected happens. You know that verse, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength, right? That's like a life verse for a lot of people. What Paul's actually talking about there, he doesn't mean if I want to stand in the middle of the room and jump to the rafters, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength, right? Now, he may miraculously do that, but it's unlikely. Not a lot of reason behind that. What he's actually saying is you can be content. If you look at the context, you can be content in any and all circumstances because you have Christ. And that is all you need. The Lord is my shepherd. What? I have everything I need. I shall not want. You actually can be content in any and all circumstances. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. So can you say when the unexpected happens, Lord, help me to grow in contentment. Help me to abide in knowing that the Lord is my shepherd. I have you, so I have everything I need. And can we keep our integrity and even grow when the narrative changes unexpectedly? And so Boaz, what I think we see in Boaz, everybody, it's a tremendous amount of trust. It's a tremendous amount of trust in God. Because there are surely ways. We didn't need to know the legal system back then. There are surely ways Boaz could have manipulated this situation, but he's willing to live palms up. People with integrity, that's streams of living water for them. Living palms up and trusting in God when the unexpected happens. Even when you don't understand where the story's going. You don't understand why the unexpected has visited your life. You don't understand why things haven't gone the way you wanted. But can you wake up each day and can you give it to God? Do you believe? Let me ask you this. Do you believe God is capable of handling it? Do you believe that? Because we can say that, but then if you say in the morning, Lord, I give this to you, I know that you're more capable than I am, but then it's easy for us to live our lives the rest of the day like everything is up to us. Like controlling the entire world is up to us. Can you really say that? So I'll tell you what, it's not a matter of just surrendering things to God and entrusting Him first thing in the morning, although that's a fantastic way to start your day. You have to learn to do that as your day unfolds. And every time you feel that, it doesn't mean we don't work, and it doesn't mean we don't work hard towards the goals that God has given to us. But every time you feel that tug of, I have to be in control of this situation, well, then you're in danger of sliding off into manipulation and anger. So can you say again, I'll tell you what, I'd encourage you, the things we do with our bodies when we pray, like that matters. I'd encourage you to actually just do this, even if it's briefly. You can do that walking down the hallway at work without people thinking you're nuts, right? They might think you're nuts for other reasons, but it's not going to be this. It's not going to be this. Lord, I give it to you. I entrust this to you again. And you learn to live your life that way. A life of trusting in God. So Boaz faces the unexpected. He keeps his integrity. He gives the outcome to God. So I want to switch gears. I want us to look at the end of this story. How does the story end? There's this entire thread. There's this story that God is weaving together. It's a story of redemption. We see the unexpected hits. Boaz handles it well because he keeps his integrity. He's been shaped by Yahweh. How's it end? So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife, and love is in the air. Love is in the air. When he made love to her, the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. Then the women said to Naomi, "Praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a kinsman redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and who's better to you than 7 sons, has given him birth." Then Naomi took the child in her arms and cared for him. The woman living there said, "Naomi has a son," and they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. David, like the David, King David. So Ruth goes from, we see her in the beginning, grief-stricken. She's a widow. She's been widowed. Her husband has died. So now she's married. Not only married, she has a son. She's taken this unbelievable step of faith, to go with her mother-in-law into a land where she was going to face discrimination. Not simply because she was a woman, but she was a foreign woman. And look where God's taken things. And Naomi, likewise, she's not only gone from a widow, lost her entire family, but remember this in chapter 1. That she comes home and the people say, "Hey, here's Naomi." She says what? "Don't call me Naomi," she told them. "Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter." Mara just means bitter. "I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Lord Almighty has brought misfortune upon me." Now this is interesting because we can kind of critique her theology here. Well, Mara, Naomi, has the Lord done this to you? Or is he with you through it? You know, these kinds of things. But what's interesting is God allows her this moment of honesty, doesn't he? Yeah, God, go ahead and be honest with God because he knows what's deep down anyway. If you're saying, "Oh, Lord, blessed be your name," but deep down you're Mara, you're bitter, he knows anyway. You might as well go ahead and tell him and begin to work that out. So she goes from that, "Call me Mara," to holding a child. It would have brought so much joy. It would have meant so much for the continuation of the family line. It's not just a great story. But this is a notice to all of us. It's a note from God saying, "This is how I work in the lives of my children." It's what the book is. It was for Ruth, Naomi, Boaz, all these characters. But it's a notice to us. This is how I work in the lives of my children. I see a world where things are not the way they are supposed to be. God sees it. He really gets it. He gets the way the world's been broken by sin. And he gets loneliness, and he gets anger, and he gets all these things, the darkness. God says, "I see all that. I created. I'm the God of the universe. And yet I take people from bitterness to joy." I take them from bitterness to joy. That's what he's saying in this story. Because we all have seasons where you could just call us bitter and leave us alone. Everybody has that. Do not be fooled by everyone's Sunday best. Don't be fooled. Don't feel insecure. Don't feel alone. Everybody goes through seasons like that. And I'll tell you what, a lot of us are going through seasons like that right now. Call me bitter and leave me alone. And there's so much in the world that works for our destruction. Big things and even small things, passing glances. Glances people give you, you don't really know what they're thinking. Are they judging you? Whatever. Like, we all go through things like that. The world throws so much at us that works for destruction. But God is bigger than that. And he tells us in the book of Ruth, "I work for redemption," the redemption of all things lost. And so we look at this story that it's about regular people. Could have been you and I. We could have been in any of these stories. And we see that he works redemptively. And so you might think, that sounds great, but not in my situation. Like, you don't get how bad these circumstances are. You don't get how long this thing that I'm struggling with has been going on. And there's no signs of life. Let me tell you this. I am not up here to parse your circumstances. I'm not up here to pass judgment on them. And in fact, everybody's suffering. This is key. Here's one thing I've learned. Maybe this is the only thing. I don't know. This is one thing I've learned. Telling somebody who's going through something a story about your brother who went through the same thing and saying, I understand, it's not always helpful. It can help someone to know that you can identify with them, but you don't understand. Everybody's suffering is unique because it's theirs. Everybody's pain is unique because it's theirs. So I get that. I get that. We see a story like this that seems to have a fairy tale ending. You might think, well, not my circumstances. Well, here's what I want to tell you this morning, and I want you to bear with me. Hear me out. The story that God's telling about redemption, it is for you. It is for all of us, no matter our circumstances. The story about God working for redemption in the details, in the mundane of your life, that is for you. It is for you. It's for all of us. He's working redemptively in our life and our circumstances, and that's what this story is about. Why? We got this great character, Boaz, the kinsman redeemer. Who admires Boaz? Who likes Boaz? All 5 of you, good. Well, Boaz, the kinsman redeemer, looks forward to. Boaz didn't know he was doing this, but Boaz was pointing forward in history the entire time. To who? To Jesus, the good, to Jesus, the Redeemer of all of us. Because all of us have had a Mara kind of day, or a Mara kind of week, or a Mara kind of season in our lives. We've all had that, and Jesus, by his sheer presence, by being with us in it, that in and of itself is redeeming us out of loss, and it's redeeming us out of despair. Do you see that? Doesn't guarantee, nobody's guaranteed a fairy tale ending in this life. Now, if you follow Christ, you are guaranteed one, because you will meet glory, and you will meet eternity. But Jesus' very presence, being with you in those circumstances, the Lord is my shepherd, I have everything I need, that is redemptive in and of itself. And he's redeeming us. And this story, it's pointing to him. It ends with a genealogy, and this is so fascinating to me. Why would the book end with a genealogy that was pointing at something that the author and the readers of the time would have had no idea what it was pointing towards? But here's how it ends. It ends with a genealogy. Salmon, the father of Boaz, Boaz, the father of Obed, Obed, the father of Jesse, and Jesse, the father of the King David. Man after God's own heart, the King David. And then you pick it up in Matthew 1, the same genealogy, and you get some more names, you get some more generations, but then it ends like this. Jacob, the father of Joseph, husband of Mary, and Mary was the mother of Jesus, who is called the Messiah, the kinsman redeemer. So the value of this story is not just that it's a great story. It is a great story. It is a great story. The Bible's worth studying just for its sheer literary value, just as literature by itself. It's a great story, everybody. It's not even just about God's hand being in our lives, though it's clearly that. It's that God's handiwork comes to us in a person. Comes to us in a person. It'd be one thing, and we could trust in God. God is spirit. God does not have a body. To say, what does God look like, means you don't understand the nature of God. God's a spirit, and we could have trusted in him, and we could have believed in him. But it's fantastic. It's amazing stuff. God knows his creation. He knows how much better we get it if we saw God flesh and blood. It's that God's handiwork comes as a person, a redeemer who lives and walks in all the details with us and redeems things simply because of his transforming presence. Redeems things simply because of his transforming presence. Can you watch? There's my challenge this week for you. Can you watch for God in the details of your life? Can you see him? And I will tell you what, this is the way God made things. This is the way he set things up. This is a skill. The more you do this, the more you will see him. The more you will see him at work in the details of your lives. And the more you practice his presence, you know you can do this. I was talking to the youth group about this a couple weeks ago. You can actually practice God's presence. When Paul says, pray without ceasing, he means it. He means that. You can practice being with God in the back of your mind while you're going about doing other things. I can pray while I'm up here preaching to you. You can pray while you're listening to me, actively listening. God's given us that ability to practice his presence. Can we watch for him in all the details of our lives, spinning together a story of redemption? That's the book of Ruth. So Lord, we leave it with you. We do. We want to live this kind of life. We want to live a life where we can rest when unexpected things happen. We can rest when a job or a child or a parent or a friend or a situation, a dream comes crashing down, whatever it is, because we know that you hold the future and nothing's unexpected to you. And you're telling a story in each one of our lives. And everybody own that. I'm encouraging you, own that. God is telling a story in your life. And it's a good one. It's a good story. And God telling that story, it doesn't hinge upon your circumstances or the way you've lived your life or the choices you've made. God knows all that. He's telling a good story. So Lord, continue to tell that story. May we watch this week for your hand in the details, your hand in the seemingly mundane, making all things absolutely extraordinary. So we trust in you for this. Amen.